That's a bit of a clickbaity headline, isn't it? The votes are in. That's what you do on social media, apparently. Anyway, there was no grand voting system. I just wanted to know, in the last video that I ran on this car, whether you guys wanted me to feature it anymore. I sort of felt like it maybe had run its course, that I'd sort of run out of storyline for it, because I bought it as a bit of a wreck and fully restored it and then got it back on the racetrack and then raced it for the first time. So I sort of felt like the story had come to an end. But I love the car and I love bringing you guys along for the journey. So I'm more than happy to keep telling the story of this car as we develop it and as I get better as a driver and as the whole process becomes more and more fun. Now, it's been a couple of weeks since I raced it at the MG Classic at Mansfield. I've been kind of really busy in the last couple of weeks ever since, and so I've really had very little time to actually work on the car. Not even had time to wash it, which is pretty slack of me really. The old stickers are still on there from when I raced it. I have, however, finally hooked up the front sway bar. This thing was giving me a real headache. The car came basically as a pile of bits and the whole interior was full of boxes of parts. There were no instructions, of course, and in amongst all the parts were a solid sway bar, which I assumed was for the front of the car, and elsewhere in one of the boxes was these massive alloy clamps, which I assumed were associated with the sway bar. I asked a bunch of people a bunch of different questions about it, and I spent a lot of time looking at pictures and looking at other Datsun 1200s and checking out their front sway bars, and nothing about this sway bar made sense to me. It's a slightly different shape to the factory bar, and these massive alloy clamps didn't fit anywhere in the front subframe. So it made absolutely no sense. I took the car around to Tom McManaway's because he's got a hoist, and so it was possible for him to just stick the car up in the air, and then you can sort of stand there and look at it from underneath and sort of scratch your head and scratch your nuts and stuff, and eventually things will make sense. But even then, it still just didn't add up. And now this car came with two sets of front lower control arms, and I wasn't really sure which of the two sets was actually originally used on the car. One set had a hole drilled in the side at the front, and in amongst the boxes of bits and pieces, there were some rod ends that looked like they might have been associated with that, and they also happened to connect with the front sway bar. So I figured that it had a custom setup whereby the rod end went down from the sway bar and through the front of the lower control arm. But there were no telltale signs on the front chassis of the car that suggested how the sway bar was actually mounted and whether or not these massive alloy clamps were even designed to be used with the front sway bar. So it was all sort of guesswork. So what I did was I purchased a couple of factory front sway bar brackets, took the car around to Tom's place, we stuck the car up on the hoist and basically just laid it all out, and it just didn't make sense. The front sway bar just didn't hook up with the factory brackets, and where the factory brackets drill into the front subframe or the chassis. Tom said to me, were there any other front sway bar parts that came with the car? And I said there was these two massive clamps that came with it. And he said, go and get them and bring them around and we'll see if that makes any sense. So I did that, took them around, and then it started to make sense. And then it sort of dawned on me that this car, the last time it was crashed at Mid-Ohio in 2006, and it was repaired by Peter Zekert, who I purchased the car from, he replaced the front left clip. So of course, there's no telltale signs, there's no evidence of how these brackets might have been mounted. But also, I thought the right front was still the original clip. But looking at it more closely, Peter had actually cut off a small section of the right front as well and replaced that as well with that from a donor car. And so suddenly it made sense. So basically these brackets bolt right through the front subframe or right through the front chassis rails, and then the sway bar is mounted to the brackets. Unfortunately, I ran out of time to actually hooked the front sway bar up before the MG Classic, so it was on the car, but it wasn't connected to the front lower control arms. I needed to get some spacers for it so that the rod ends could move around. Ran out of time to do that. As it turns out, I couldn't find spacers that were the right size anyway, so Tom, once again, came to my rescue and he machined some up for me on his lathe. So today, I have finally fitted the front sway bar. It's all hooked up, it's all connected, the front wheels are now finally joined together, just as it should be. So it's been a good day. Also, I fixed a leaking tap in our kitchen today, so that makes it even better. Now, unfortunately, I've got a bit too much on my plate, and so I'm not going to get a chance to actually race the car again this side of Christmas. I am going to run the car at a sprint event, which will really be the last time that it actually does any laps. And I'm mainly doing that because I personally need to get some seat time, as many of you guys have recommended, and I want to see what the car feels like with the front sway bar hooked up, and I also want to just muck around with my tyre pressures a little bit too. Now, a few of you have reached out and expressed some concern about me passing out and bumping my head the first time I ran the car at a sprint day about a month ago. I did get a bit dehydrated and probably stood up too quickly and kind of got quite lightheaded and sort of passed out, bumped my head on the ground. Thank you for the concern, I really do appreciate that. For those of you who didn't ask about it, I mean, what's wrong with you? How about a bit of sympathy? Anyway, the good news is it doesn't seem to have made me any dumber. The bad news is it doesn't seem to have made me any smarter either. But anyway, thanks for the concern. Now, the only other job I wanted to get done, as well as hooking up the front sway bar, was to replace the engine oil and the oil filter, and so I'll get that done tomorrow. The oil filter is quite tricky to get to because this thing's got a winged sump in it, which there's about that much clearance at below the bottom of the oil filter and the top of the right side wing of the sump. But apparently I can get it off without having to remove the entire sump. Now, before I go, I just wanted to say thank you to the team that runs the historic muscle and saloon car group that I run the car with. They're an amazing group of people. The committee is run by this incredible team that are hugely committed to making the class as fun and as smooth running and enjoyable as it can possibly be. The work that these guys do is amazing. They make racing fun, and essentially what you're doing is you're hanging out with a bunch of friends. Our committee is made up of a small but hugely dedicated little team, and they include Sean McCorn, Natalie Campbell, Tony Roberts, Glenn Allingham, Tanya Allingham, John Sampson, and James Buchanan, and I think that's everyone. Oh, and me, of course. But these guys make going racing fun, and I just wanted to say, I don't think any of them even watch these videos, but I just wanted, on the off chance that they do, I just wanted to say a huge thank you to those guys for all the work that they do to make our racing season fun, to make it run as smoothly as possible, and to welcome members and to put on a fantastic show for the fans. Yeah, I love this group. So I think last time I put a link down the bottom. If any of you guys want to get involved in any way, if you've got a historic car, whether it's one with history like this or it's a newly built historic car, check out the links that I've added below. It'd be cool to see you. Oh, one more person to thank, my wife Helen. She is the one who did the little video clips that we featured in the last video of me trundling through the pits and trundling down the pit lane and me trundling around at the back of the field around the track. Yeah, she's an amazing person, and it's just so much fun to go racing when you have got your partner, your best friend coming along for the journey as well. Oh, and one more thing, I just wanted to say thanks again to you guys for all your comments, for all your feedback and your advice and your encouragement. I know that this is a bit of a rambling video. I do apologize for that. They're usually better structured. Thanks again for all your comments, for all your encouragement, and it's great to have you guys along for the ride. I feel like we're all part of a big team together, working together, all sort of moving in the same direction. So thanks again. See you at the track.